Arguing with a judge in court is always a dicey proposition. That's even truer when you're the jurors and the whole world is watching. There have been many incidents of a judge losing their control, let it be a murder trial or a hearing for driving without a license. So let's look at times when judges got mad during trials. But before we continue, please give it a like and hit the subscribe button. It really helps me grow the channel. Everyone's familiar with this trial. Derek Chauvin was charged with the death of George Floyd. He was held accountable, but during the trial, something happened, still possibly which irks the witnesses on the stand. The judge, Peter Cahill, overseeing the trial for the former police officer, warned a witness not to argue after her replies to a defense attorney. The judge told Genevieve Hansen, a firefighter who was off duty at the time of Floyd's death, and testified that she was not allowed to give him aid.
Do not argue with the court. Do not argue with counsel. Answer the questions. Do not volunteer information that is not requested.
Yikes, that sounds serious. In this next footage from a courtroom in Maricopa County, Arizona, bewildered attorneys and spectators could only watch as a victim's lawyer was repeatedly interrupted, verbally lashed, and ultimately thrown out of the courtroom. The outburst by Superior Court Commissioner Julie Newell cut into what was meant to be a routine aggravated assault hearing. This scene shows a woman in the spectator gallery who was actually attorney Sheila Madden standing up and attempting to make a comment on behalf of the victim in the case. Newell quickly shut Madden down and ordered her to be seated. A short while later, during Madden's second attempt to speak, which is when Newell erupts, she yells, pointing to the exit,
"Get out of the courtroom right now! Out of the courtroom right now!"
Newell then orders someone to call a deputy. The defense attorney in the case, John Bleshak, tried to intervene and tell the commissioner that Madden actually had a right to be there, but the attempt was unsuccessful. In the end, Madden had to leave as she didn't want any more disrespect. Newell, on the other hand, was publicly chastised by commission members who found her behavior impotent, impatient, harsh, and intimidating. This would be her last day in court, as she resigned from her position the very next day and publicly apologized for her behavior. Julie Newell was scolded for her behavior in the courtroom during an aggravated assault hearing. What do you think about her behavior? Do you think that she should have resigned from her position? Let us know in the comment section. During this infamous trial of the teen who shot and killed 2 people and injured 1, prosecutors asked for permission to introduce a brief video taken 15 days before the protest shootings into evidence. In it, Rittenhouse is heard watching some men exit a CVS pharmacy and commenting that he wished he had his rifle so he could shoot him because he thought they were shoplifters. Prosecutor Thomas Binger argued at a pretrial hearing that it showed Rittenhouse's mindset as a teenage vigilante, involving himself in things that didn't concern him. But Judge Schroeder questioned its relevance because he said he was inclined not to allow it, seeing as Schroeder seemed inclined to continue to go to bat for a kid who killed 2 people. When Binger told the judge that he had left the door open in his early ruling, Schroeder yelled, "For me, not for you." The angry judge also called the prosecutor's response to Kyle Rittenhouse's right to remain silent about the case a grave constitutional violation. To talk about the defendant's silence and warning him that he had better stop, it really seemed like Prosecutor Binger was on the stand for the murders, not Rittenhouse. Most attorneys will tell you it's a pretty smart idea to stay on the judge's good side when you're arguing a client's case. What's not a good idea is to accuse said judge of serious judicial misconduct.
You know there was jury tampering Wednesday. You saw it yourself.
The man dropping that bombshell is Kentucky Commonwealth Attorney Larry Rogers, and on the receiving end is Judge Vernon Minyard, and he's not receiving it well. Rogers was actually referring to another case he and the judge are involved in, which allegations of jury tampering and corruption in Russell County. When asked not to yell, the judge lost his cool and said,
"I'll yell all I want. This is my court, and I'll do what I want."
He then told Rogers to go and sit, and that he didn't want to hear from him anymore. Turns out the allegations had no merit, and Roger himself would later be accused of prosecutorial misconduct in several cases. Next up, we have the Florida man Henry Segura, who was being cross-examined on the stand. The 41-year-old was charged with killing Brandy Peters, her twin daughters Tamia and Tanaya Peters, and the couple's own son Javante Segura on September of 2010 at her Paddle Creek run home. Segura told the jurors that he had regularly cheated on his wife and had children out of wedlock, but that he wasn't a killer. Segura was at times combative on the stand under questioning. At one point, when he interrupted the prosecutor's repeated questioning, Judge James Hankinson told Segura not to interrupt the prosecutor's question. He replied angrily, "Who are you pointing at? Who are you pointing at? I am a grown man." Hankinson told him to wait for the prosecutor to finish a question before answering. Next up, we go to Las Vegas, Nevada, for a hearing of Joshua Martinez. This guy was representing himself after being charged with driving with a suspended license. He wanted to sound smart, so when he asked about his plea, he said, "I just have a couple of questions before we proceed. I don't understand the nature and cause of these charges." The judge replied, "You're charged with driving on a suspended, canceled, or revoked driver's license." Sounds pretty cut and dry to us, but not Martinez. He apparently wanted to dig into the legal details. He questioned the judge's authority, so the judge had to show him who was in charge. Martinez was dismissed for 20 minutes, and when he returned, he was asked to apologize for direct contempt of court. He didn't do so. The judge sentenced him to 15 days in jail. Harsh? Well, that's what you get for disrespecting the court. Next up, we have Judge Martha Anderson, who's hearing attorney Paul Nicoletti, who's in court being on an ongoing feud with former client Karen Stevens. Stevens claims Nicoletti has petitioned for the court to have a personal protection order, or a PPO, against her over accusations of stalking. So she's there to fight the order and try to bring sanctions against Nicoletti. But to her surprise, the judge tells her that she hasn't even signed a PPO. She then goes on to interrupt the judge. And as we've seen from this video, judges don't take too kindly to that. Judge Anderson says to Karen,
"Do not interrupt me when I'm speaking, ma'am."
And Karen says,
I have a constitutional right to be heard.
The judge yells at her,
On what basis? There is no case before me, ma'am, other than the fact that you filed this frivolous motion taking up this court's time for no good reason other than your own personal vendetta against this man for whatever reason you may have, and I really don't care because it does not involve me or my court. However, had I issued a PPO, you would have a basis to be before me. I did not issue a PPO. He did not pursue his right to a hearing on the PPO. You were never served, and here you are taking up my time so that you want me to chastise him and make him pay money? No, ma'am. Your relief is denied.
In the end, she's also hit with a $500 fine of her own. That's in addition to failing to get sanctions against Nicoletti. Unhappy with the decision, the Karen said, "I knew it was fixed." This is when the judge really loses it and tells her to just leave the courtroom. Back in September, the judge overseeing the penalty trial of the 2018 Parkland shooter had a heated exchange with the public defender. It happened after public defender Gordon Weeks asked that Judge Elizabeth Scherer tap down and control the perceived threats directed by the families of the Parkland shooting victims. Scherer seemed unaware of the issue even after Wheeler pressed Scherer and wanted to know if he was going to do anything to prevent further comments.
I didn't even know you have children. I don't know what you're talking about. Your children? What about your children?
Then Wheeler told Scherer that,
"I can assure you that if they were talking about your children, you would definitely notice it."
You need to sit down right now. You're out of line.
she then excused him from the defense table and asked him to sit back like he was a misbehaving child. Scherer told Gordon Weeks that McNeil had chosen to bring up her children during her defense and that she asked Weeks to sit down. Weeks asked Scherer not to dismiss him and then asked for a recess. She denied it, so he walked away. Scherer called the decision the most uncalled for, unprofessional way to try a case. Jeez, these people really know how to get on the nerves of judges. What do you think was the worst one of them all? Well, that's it for today's video. If you liked it, click the bell icon and the like button. We got another video coming for you soon. Take care until then. Adios.